Hello and welcome to episode 28 of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer. As usual, I'm joined by the one and only football writer and broadcaster, Dean Jones, to discuss all the latest news and gossip from the world of football. Hi, Dean. The season's drawing to a close now, just the top four to be sorted out, but there's still plenty of news going around, and there's only one place we can start this week, and that's the future of Harry Kane. The England international has come out and told Spurs he wants to leave the club at the end of the season to join a club where he can challenge for trophies. Do you actually see Harry Kane getting his wish this summer and possible move away from Tottenham?
I think it's very unlikely. I think that people got very excited when this news came out, and I understand that because it is a big deal for a player to go and ask for a transfer. But ultimately, where's he going to go? Who's going to pay for him? Why would Daniel Levy let him go? When you tie yourself down to a long-term contract, I think you have to accept the implications of that and the risks that come with that. Harry Kane tied himself down at a time when Tottenham were on the up, moving into a new stadium and all the rest of it. And I think he thought he was in a good place, and things haven't quite worked out the way he would have expected them to. And to still be looking for a trophy at this point, it's probably not something he would have really thought would be possible the way that things were going. But now you're looking at it, it's going to take at least £150 million to sign him, probably more, to be honest. He's 27. He's started to pick up injuries. Who's going to sign Harry Kane on a 5-year deal on 300 odd grand a week with that kind of investment? And there's not many teams that really can at this moment in time, because from a business point of view, it doesn't make much sense. You're not going to have that resale value. You don't know how many games he's going to be fit for the next year. Yeah, it might help you win the league next season. But say, he's linked with Man United, Man City. I just can't see those clubs having that money right now and thinking that that's a good move business-wise. I'm not talking about football-wise. I'm talking about business-wise, which, to be honest, is how you have to look at deals like this.
Yeah, as you said, business-wise, I think he turns 28 later this summer as well, Harry Kane. So he's not getting any younger. He's had his injury problems with a few ankle injuries over the last couple of seasons as well. I think there's one thing we can be sure of here, Dean. It's going to be a saga, this one. It's going to be probably the transfer saga of the summer. But what about coming out and saying he wanted his future sorted before the Euros? A bit unrealistic, I think, that from Kane and his representatives. There was absolutely no chance that Daniel Levy was going to agree to a deal before the Euros. And he's in a strong position. If Harry Kane goes to the Euros, England win, he finishes a top scorer. It just adds a few more zeros to his price tag.
Exactly that. Yeah, there's absolutely. It's impossible that you could have a deal in place within 4 weeks for Harry Kane. Like, this is Daniel Levy, and even any other club, you wouldn't get that kind of thing happening. I think what probably happened is that Kane would like to know that he's going to be available before the Euros, so that and even if that's privately, that he wants the club to agree to this before the Euros, even if the transfer as such isn't agreed. Daniel Levy doesn't want Harry Kane going to play for another Premier League club. Like, it's not in his interests at all. If he's going to leave, he's going to have to go abroad. Harry Kane doesn't really want to go abroad, and I don't really think there are many clubs out there that could afford him anyway. Maybe PSG. I think it's the only place I could see that could potentially afford him this summer. But even then, I don't think Harry Kane dreams of playing for PSG. I don't think that's what he's had in mind here. So,
Imagine the goals he would score in France.
Yeah, he'd get 40 league goals, but I'm not sure he wakes up at night dreaming of winning Liga. I'm not sure that's what this is all about. I think it's about the Premier League and the Champions League. And with PSG, one of those is impossible, and the other one is seemingly unlikely, as they've failed to take those last steps in a couple of years.
Yeah, obviously Mauricio Pochettino maybe would have a better chance than most to persuade Kane to make that move to the French capital as well. And if Kane was to go there, is he thinking Ballon d'Or? If he goes there to wins the Champions League, he wants these personal accolades as well as these team accolades as well.
Mate, he's got a really good relationship with Pochettino still, and that does exist, and I think that is why it becomes even more plausible. But at the end of the day, if Daniel Levy doesn't want to sell him, he won't sell him. If he doesn't want him to leave, he won't go. We saw it with Dele Alli. Dele Alli was linked with PSG for 2 transfer windows. He's still there, and he literally wasn't playing. Harry Kane's their best player, so why would he let him go?
Yeah, seems highly unlikely. Just looking at that, if you're looking at the betting here on Harry Kane's future, you've got Harry Kane to stay at Spurs. That's the current favourite at 11-8. Then Manchester City at 13-8. Manchester United 7-2. Chelsea 10-1, PSG, as we've mentioned, 16-1, while the two big Spanish clubs, Barcelona and Real Madrid, 25-1. I think there's one certainty here, Dean. Daniel Levy would never sell Harry Kane to Chelsea. Let's put that one out there straight away. So I don't waste your money
on that.
Yeah, don't waste your money on Chelsea at 10-1. A couple of years ago, I might have seen Real Madrid being a real possibility for Harry Kane. There was a lot of talk of Pochettino possibly going to Madrid as well. Could those two link up? But like you said, Dean, Daniel Levy won't want to strengthen a Premier League rival, and all indications seem to point that Harry Kane wants to stay in the Premier League. So if you had a spare £20, would you be on that 11 to 8 for him to stay at Spurs?
Yeah, I'd put most of it on that. I might have a cheeky fiver on him to go at PSG if he was to go anywhere, because that's not bad value, to be honest.
Yeah, not bad value as well. But yeah, I think this one's going to drag on. It's definitely not going to happen before the Euros. It's probably going to get messier than Bill Gates' divorce, probably this divorce from Spurs, if it happens for Harry Kane as well. But it's going to be a real transfer saga as we expect, with all the big name strikers this summer, the likes of Haaland, Mbappe as well. But yeah, could Harry Kane possibly go to Manchester City and be a replacement for Sergio Aguero? We all know Aguero is leaving the Etihad this season after a glory-filled spell at the club as well. A lot of talk suggesting, Dean, now that Aguero seemingly nailed on for a move to Barcelona. What's your latest take on the Argentine's future?
Yeah, I think that in principle, Sergio Aguero has agreed this transfer. I think that there are certain terms that now need to be met before it's all finalised. And I think that one of the things that he needs to be convinced of is that Messi's definitely staying. Like, he wants to see that in writing, I think. I'm pretty sure he is. But this is a time at Barcelona when, there are difficulties. They're third in La Liga. They're looking to rebuild that squad, but don't really have the money to do it. So they're having to look at free transfers. Memphis Depay is probably going to arrive on a free transfer. Sergio Aguero on a free transfer. And I think part of it is to try and improve the squad short term without that outlay of cash. And then perhaps the year after, be in that bidding for somebody like Haaland. I think that we'll see a lot of that, I think, over the coming months, as clubs looking at that Haaland deal and thinking, okay, he's probably not going to leave Dortmund right now. What can we do as a stopgap? And I think, United have just signed Edinson Cavani for another year. I think Barcelona taking Sergio Aguero at the stage of his career, that's a sign of those clubs just taking short-term views without putting a load of cash into an elite talent. And I think that's because of Haaland. But I think that Barcelona are just trying to be smart right now. Obviously, Gini Wijnaldum's another one that's linked to them and isn't signing his new contract at the moment. So I do think there's a good chance of Sergio Aguero going into Barcelona. They really have missed Luis Suarez this season. They should never have let him join Atletico Madrid. He's literally gone there and won them La Liga. Well, he's on the verge of winning La Liga. Scored 20 goals. They could really have done that with that at Barcelona. If Sergio Aguero can stay fit, he could score 20 goals next season.
Yeah, that's probably been the big issue for Sergio this season. It's been injury hit campaign in his final season at the Etihad as well. But on his day, we all know, a proven goal scorer, Manchester City's all-time top goal scorer as well. Just use this as a bargaining chip to persuade Lionel Messi to sign a new deal at the Camp Nou.
I think Messi will stay, to be honest. I think that there doesn't seem to be too much momentum now behind him leaving. Man City will always wait, and just in case that call arrives, but there's been no signs really. I saw the transfer rumour did crop up again a couple of weeks ago, but from what I understand, like, Man City aren't expecting to sign Messi anytime soon. Yeah, so I think Messi will stay,
Yeah, Messi should end up staying at Barcelona. I think that could be an even harder deal than Harry Kane, probably, even though he is a free agent, just trying to get Lionel Messi out of Barcelona, where he's such an icon as well. And yeah, I'm sure with Sergio Aguero possibly alongside him in attack next season, Barcelona will be looking to fight for La Liga and the Champions League as well. One person who won't be around next season, Dean, is Roy Hodgson. Crystal Palace announcing that the former England manager is stepping down from his role at Selhurst Park at the end of this season. He's obviously done a great job there, Roy Hodgson, at Crystal Palace. He's kept them in the Premier League, hasn't spent lots of money either. I think Crystal Palace fans will be sad to see him go.
Some will say it was boring. I think this is the problem with it. I think that you get to a stage with a club like Crystal Palace, and it's great that they're staying in the Premier League, but the style of football isn't enough for some people. They'd like to see more ambition on the pitch. In fairness to Roy Hodgson, he hasn't had much money to spend in his time there. A lot of the team he started with when 4 years ago when he first came into the job. So I think he's done really well to keep them afloat. And I think we'll find out next season just what a good job he did do, because whoever comes in, their main task is to keep Palace in the league. And that's why this decision has dragged on a little bit. The board have been they've been tempted to try and convince Roy Hodgson to stay because they know he's going to keep them up, but they know that they can't keep dragging on and on and on and just keeping their heads above water. And at some point they have to change, and they're waiting for Hodgson to make up his mind. Now that he's announced he's stepping down, they've obviously been sounding out other managers. I know Eddie Howe was somebody they looked at and didn't convince them, let's say, that that's the right path to go down. There are other candidates in the running right now, and I think that Steve Cooper, Sean Dyche has been spoken about and sounded out, and Frank Lampard's certainly on the list. I don't think Sean Dyche is going to get it from what I've told. I don't think that will be where they turn. At this stage, it's looking more and more likely to me that Frank Lampard does actually get it. They're very tempted to give it to him, and I think that what will convince them is that Ray Lewington potentially stays around to help steady the ship, because that's the big problem here. Is like transitioning from Roy Hodgson team into a Frank Lampard team would obviously be tough. Like Lampard hasn't got experience. His background team wouldn't have the knowledge of the squad, and Ray Lewington's obviously been big part of everything that Roy Hodgson's done. So if Ray Lewington was to stay part of it, I think Palace would have a little more confidence in taking that risk with Lampard, and hoping that his connections in the game as well could help bulk up that squad for next season.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, this, where Palace do go next after Roy Hodgson. Obviously, we know they're looking to go down maybe the younger route, which obviously Frank Lampard or Steve Cooper could possibly bring as well. My understanding is Steve Parris, the Crystal Palace chairman, is very keen on Frank Lampard, while maybe some other members of the board and the football hierarchy are not that keen on Lampard. Dougie Friedman, the director of football at Selhurst Park, he's quite interested in the Barnsley manager, Valérien Ismaël, who's done a great job there. Obviously has Palace connections as well, being an ex-Palace player. But for whoever takes this job, Dean, like you mentioned, massive job. It's a big upheaval at the club this summer, not just Hodgson leaving. There's at least 12 players out of contract as well. So lots to be sorted out at Selhurst Park.
Yeah, it's a really unstable time. And on top of that, you'll have Wilfried Zaha looking for a transfer in the next couple of months, because that's what he does every summer. And yeah, it's a really difficult job for whoever comes in, to be honest. And, you're not going to get that little gap where there's no fans in there judging you from day one either. Like, they're going to be in there for next season. And if you're not doing a good job, you'll know about it within a few games. It's a risk to go down the Lampard route. I don't think there's much doubt about that. He was praised quite a lot for the job he did at Derby, but ultimately, I don't think there was that much improvement at Derby under him. I know some people might not agree with that, but fair enough. And at Chelsea, things weren't going very well, and Thomas Tuchel's come in and he's got them to 2 cup finals and into the top 4. So, it's early days for Frank Lampard in his management career. We can't make big judgments on him yet as a coach, but you have to. If he's going to go into a job like that, you have to. So that's what Palace have to consider now. Do they want to go with the high profile Frank Lampard, or do they want to go maybe just a level below that and a bit more tried and trusted, even if it was Ismaël or somebody like that who's got that experience and nous?
Yeah, he's obviously won a lot of admirers with what he's done at Barnsley so far, bringing that an unfashionable club like Barnsley into the Championship playoffs. They could be in the Premier League for all we know before the end of the season as well. So big decision ahead for Crystal Palace. And as you said, Dean, still question marks over Frank Lampard and what he's done in his managerial career so far. And the other thing you have to take into consideration is that Frank Lampard won't be used to relegation fights, and that's probably what he's going to be involved in at Crystal Palace if he was to take the job. Exactly
that, and that's why they are worried about it. That's one of the big things holding them back in this. But it's where you're going to pretty much be. I mean, the fact his first job in the Premier League was with Chelsea, that's not really how it goes as life as a manager. He was very lucky to get that opportunity. So he's got to go and prove that he can do it. And, a club like Crystal Palace, at least it has a good foundation. They've been in the Premier League a while now. There's enough tape that he can watch back of how Palace have built this foundation. There are ways to identify areas of the pitch that they can improve in, particularly when it comes to scoring goals. So I think that there are improvements that he can spot and improve. But ultimately, yeah, if he was to start putting emphasis on attack and bringing through young players, say, there's always that doubt about losing games that you can't afford to lose and suddenly being trapped down at the bottom of the league. So yeah, a tricky one for both sides, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll agree with that one. I think it's a big decision for Palace and also whoever takes over from Roy Hodgson, because they are big shoes to fill. He's done a great job on a small budget there at Palace to constantly keep them in the Premier League as well. Yeah, and just moving on then, Dean, another interesting transfer line that's going to be one to keep an eye on over the summer is the long-term future of Cristiano Ronaldo. Could he really leave Juventus this summer? Bit of rumours going around that he could be heading back to his first club, Sporting Lisbon, who have just won the Portuguese Primeira Liga this season as well. They will be in the Champions League. Juventus, very much, they might not be in the Champions League. They're struggling to finish in the top four in Serie A right now. He's just got 1 year left on his contract in Turin. Ronaldo, obviously, when he arrived there 3 years ago, it was to try and take Juve to the next level and win the Champions League. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened for them, but it's been a real sort of shock for them this season to find where they are, crashing out of the Champions League early. They haven't been in the title race either. Obviously, Andrea Pirlo's come under a lot of pressure as well as head coach there. But also, it's been a big financial burden for Juventus. I think he's on 30 million euros a season there. Not many teams can afford that. What's your take on Ronaldo? Do you think he'll be a Juventus player next season?
I think we have to wait and see how the season ends, because we'll see if they make the top four, and then beyond that, we'll see if Andrea Pirlo keeps his job as Juventus boss, because I think there's definitely doubt around that, and so there should be, really, for the way that they've underperformed this season. I don't think he'll go to Sporting if he does leave. I don't think that that's in his career plan. One thing that I think could prove interesting, I mean, this is a bit hypothetical right now because he's still in a job, but there are a lot of rumours around Zidane at Real Madrid walking out, like potentially the next game is his final game as Real Madrid manager. If he does leave and he wants to stay in football, does Zidane come in as a replacement for Pirlo if they don't make the Champions League and they decide to move on from Pirlo? Zidane and Ronaldo back together at Juventus is something I could definitely see working. I think that that works with the Juventus vision. It works with keeping Ronaldo and getting him performing at his top level. They have a lot of respect for each other. They've got a good relationship. And it would also help Juventus shape their squad, I guess, as they want to, rather than, well, they face chaos, really, if things don't work out at the end of this season and they were to keep Pirlo. So let's see how all that pans out before we can really determine what Ronaldo does. I think ideally he'd look to stay. But obviously, if they haven't got Champions League football, and if they didn't have a coach he believed in, I think you have to realise that he's probably going to look for a new challenge.
Yeah, and that new challenge, a return to Man United, a possibility or not? Or have United?
No, he's not going back to Man United. He's not. This story comes up all the time, and United are quite consistent on the message that Ronaldo won't be coming back to Old Trafford. So I don't see it happening, especially now they signed Cavani, like on that extension. Like maybe if they wanted someone as a 1 year stopgap, as a forward to score goals and bring that experience and feel good factor, then I think that would have been a possibility. But no, I don't see it. I think he'll look for another challenge, probably in Europe, and then look to get to MLS after that.
Yeah, so possibly if there's a challenge in Europe for him, would PSG be an option? Probably one of the only teams that could afford his salary and everything else. Could you see him at PSG?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you always have to keep them in the conversation, just because they always have the funding, don't they? You know, they've got Qatari money that is always available to them, and a lot of the elite clubs don't have that kind of backing. If Kylian Mbappe does leave PSG, then to go to Real Madrid this summer, then it's going to open up a gap. And I think, you know, Harry Kane will be looked at. And if they could look at Ronaldo, then of course, like getting rid of Mbappe and signing Ronaldo, putting him in a pitch with Neymar would obviously be earning you a few quid over the next year or so. But there's only a few clubs that could afford to sign Ronaldo, so you'd have to be looking at that straight away.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what just happened at Juventus as well, with the managerial situation and with Ronaldo as well, who's obviously on a very lucrative deal over there in Italy as well. From one excited attacker to another, Dean, Allan Saint-Maximin at Newcastle. He's probably been their one shining light this season when he's been fit and he's played. He's just been a joy to watch sometimes in the Premier League for Newcastle. He's come out with a few words as well, maybe raising doubts about his future, suggesting that Newcastle should be doing a lot better. He doesn't want to be down at the bottom of the table where he has found himself this season with Newcastle. That's raised a few alarm bells for Newcastle fans because I'm sure there'll be lots of takers for the French winger. Obviously, there's been a few rumours that Jose Mourinho would love to take him to Roma with him if he could, while also there's been some rumours that Liverpool and Leicester in the Premier League are big fans of the former Nice man. What's your take on Saint-Maximin's future?
I think it's logical that he would probably look for a move. I think that his style of play doesn't suit being in a relegation battle, and I don't think he's the type of player that wants to be at that level for too long. So I do think that he's probably got his eyes open to a move if the right offer comes along. There's been a lot of reports about him during his time at Newcastle, particularly this season, and some friction with Steve Bruce. I know the manager's played a lot of that down, but it never seems to totally go away. Ultimately, Saint-Maximin is the game changer in that squad. You see like the turnaround in form, and the best performances are often down to the fact that he has a really good game. And that wouldn't have gone unnoticed in the Premier League. So there will definitely be teams that look to sign him. I mean, you talk about somebody like Leeds. I mean, they're looking at Adama Traore, and if they can't get him, then yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't be looking down this path. Jose Mourinho, I'm not sure he's the manager to be managing Saint-Maximin, but fair enough. If the rumour's there, the rumour's there. But if I was Saint-Maximin, I'm not sure I'd want to be going to a Mourinho team right now and worrying about my defensive duties.
Yeah, I'm not sure he'd be too up for that, chasing back a full back, overlapping him or something like that. But yeah, he's a luxury player. The Newcastle fans love him as well. He's probably rated around the 40 million mark right now. Be a real concern, Newcastle, if a big offer did come in for him. We all know Mike Ashley is a businessman, that he would seriously take the money. And that would leave Newcastle in the lurch, really, because without Saint-Maximin, they look a real, poor team, to be honest.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, they've avoided relegation this season, but probably because there were three teams who were pretty poor. I mean, Newcastle weren't great, but at least they managed to put, enough good performances together across the course of a season. It was just three teams there that literally played about 5-6 good games all campaign. So that's why they've survived more than anything else. And losing Saint-Maximin, yeah, it's a big gap to fill. And you're then looking for a creative player. What creative player is really going to want to go into that situation? There's always doubts around Steve Bruce. There's always pressure from the fans. It's just a really difficult club to come to grips with, really. It'll be a shame if he left because I think the fans love him. But ultimately, this is what tends to happen, isn't it, at these clubs?
Yeah, unfortunately, the best players at the clubs down the wrong end of the table do find themselves losing their star players. Possibility you could see him as a replacement for Sadio Mane at Liverpool, Dean? Or do you think he'd fit Jurgen Klopp's style of football?
No, I don't really see that happening. No. I mean, one, I don't think Mane will leave. But secondly, I think it's too soon for Jurgen Klopp to be looking at him and relying on him. I think Klopp, for me, it would be too risky. I just don't think Klopp would sign a player like that.
Yeah, his work rate probably wouldn't go down too well with the German.
And his injury record as well. The two things combined, I think he would just look at that and say, I can't do that.
Probably too much of a gamble for Liverpool, who will obviously be looking to spend their money wisely this year after a disappointing season by their own standards as well. But yeah, Newcastle fans will be hoping and praying no one comes in for Saint-Maximin and he will be at St James's Park next season. From one winger to another, one who hasn't lit up the Premier League this season, and that is Willian at Arsenal. Obviously, there's a lot of publicity around his move from Chelsea to Arsenal last summer. Dean, he got a 3-year deal, which surprised a lot of people as well. But yeah, he just hasn't hit the heights at the Emirates at all. I think he's got 1 goal in 37 appearances and 7 assists. We expected a lot more from Willian. We expected to see the Willian that we'd seen at Chelsea. But for whatever reason, Mikel Arteta just hasn't seen the best of him. Do you see a parting of the ways this summer?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it has been strange. I mean, one of the reasons we were told he left Chelsea was because, they wouldn't offer a longer term contract than a year. And here he is a year later at Arsenal and he's having to look for a transfer. So that 3-year deal that's why Chelsea didn't give him a 3-year contract. 'Cause he wants to move a year later, and he hasn't been in good form. So there's a reason Chelsea let all these players join Arsenal. It's because they're past their best, and Arsenal need to stop falling for it, to be honest. So I don't think there's a future for Willian. One of the things I was told before the start of the season was that they had a vision for Willian to emerge as sort of a number 10 player, and Mikel Arteta had a good idea of how he thought he could get the best out of him, and especially on set pieces and things like this. And just none of it's come to fruition, to be honest. So I think moving on from Willian, moving on from David Luiz, just starting to try again with this squad and try and get Arsenal back to where they feel they should be. You've got to take bold decisions, and this is one of them, because there's no point waiting and waiting for a player that's nearing the end of his career anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be a big squad overhaul at Arsenal this summer as well. We can't see Willian joining another Premier League club if he does leave Arsenal this summer. I think probably a move to MLS, more likely.
I think so, yeah, unless there was like a lower league team who were to suddenly put a lot of money in front of him. I can see him doing that, but otherwise Inter Miami were interested in him last year. Seems that MLS is an option he's open to, so I can definitely see that coming around. But yeah, I don't think any of the top Premier League clubs will be touching Willian.
Yeah, I think his Premier League adventure will be coming to an end this summer if Arsenal can find a suitable buyer for him. Yeah, but the transfer rumours are hotting up now, Dean. That's us for another week here on Touchline Talk. We'll be back next week for more insight and the latest news in the world of football.